He kōna I purangi tēnei nā te reo irirangi o Aotearoa.
If anyone had said to me 10 years ago, oh, you're going to be living in this place, Umaio, and you're going to be doing conservation, they'd be like, doubt it. You know, it's funny, when I first, only because I didn't know, but when I first moved back here and we made the move home, well, there was a tangi at my husband's marae, or tūwhare, and he's te whānau rongomai, and te whānau rutaia. And it's like, there's a tangi on, got to go to the marae. And I'm like, yeah, no, sweet. So go down there. So this is like, I meet the whole whānau, like everyone. And it's awesome. And they're like, come on, cuz, we'll go down and get us a cow. So drive, across the road over there, Uncle Jimmy's cows, and boom, shoot a cow. And I'm sitting there in like a swanee and gumboots with all the whānau hooking into this cow, to take down to the marae. And I'm like, holy cow, this is crazy.
Although I live in Te Moana a Toite Huatahi, Bay of Plenty myself, I've never been this far around the East Cape from this side, so I really loved the drive past Ōpōtiki. Travelling along State Highway 35 with Fran, our photographer-videographer, I couldn't help but blast the song 35 by Ka Hau and Rob Ruha. It was early winter, but the weather was stunning. Fran couldn't quite believe that the weather gets like this our ways at this time of year. The coast is beautiful. Ocean, sand, and every township has a marae by the sea. There are so many hapu and iwi here. Our drive took us to the tiny settlement of Umaio, about 45 minutes from Ōpōtiki, to catch up with Sharon Wharepapa. Kia ora, I'm Āpeish Tarator Rangikura. He uri nō Ngāti Raukawa, Ngaitirangi, Ngāpuhi me Ngāti Rārua. This is Far From Town, made by Shepherdess and RNZ. Stories of women at the end of windy gravel roads and up remote valleys across Aotearoa. We pull up and Sharon is standing on the Queenslander deck of her house, arms wide open to greet us. Her beautiful, grand home is on husband Caleb Wharepapa's whānau whenua and looks over the moana. Caleb's parents live next door, though they are away for mahi. Sharon, who is in her early 50s, has been on a bit of a journey to end up here on the edges of the Raukūmara range, from Waifetū in Lower Hutt, to a glamorous life on the Gold Coast, to her life now. And yes, it's a bit of a love story, but it's about how reconnecting with Caleb helped Sharon reconnect with her Māoritanga too, and how she found herself in the middle of the bush.
I was raised by my grandparents, my father's parents. My father's Pākehā, my mum's Māori. So we lived down in Waifetū, and Caleb's grandparents lived just around the corner. Caleb and I, we knew each other growing up. So I went to kura with all of his cousins and that down in the Hutt Valley in Waifetū, and he was over in Wainuiomata. So we knew each other and kind of crossed paths a few times. But Caleb, very handsome young man, so he had lots of attention. Yeah. But I was always really shy and things, so I wasn't really interested in boys that much until I got a little bit older. So, but we did have our first kiss when we were 15. But that was it. And I went my way, he went his way. And every time, and I moved to the Gold Coast when I was 21. But every time I would go back, and sometimes I'd bump into some of Caleb's cousins, and I'd ask, how's Caleb Wharepapa? It was this thing. And he's in Tahiti, or he's in Canada, or he's somewhere. And I just think, wow, that's cool. So, yeah, it was like 26 years later, he came up as someone I might know on my Facebook. And I was living with my girlfriend was living with me at the time on the Gold Coast, and we all went to school together, and she knew Caleb as well. So I kind of went, oh my gosh, it's Caleb Wharepapa, and she was like, woohoo, because she knew that kind of connection. So I thought, I'm just going to add him as friend. And a couple of days later, he accepted, and I thought, oh yeah, he's going to message me. funny. And he did. The next day I got this novel of a message from him, and we just started communicating, and I thought it was cute, but it was like, well, I'm on the Gold Coast, been here for 20 years, no intention to move home to New Zealand, didn't even know where Te Kaha was, or Maio, or Te Whānau Apanui, because I'd never been this way before. And so when he said, this is where I live, I was like, oh yeah, but didn't have a clue where. So yeah, we just would communicate, but at the time Caleb was working in the bush, doing pest control. So when he'd go bush, there was no reception or anything like that. But he would climb the highest point of the hill where there might be a little bit of reception, so he could flick a message out to me or something. But yeah, one day he kind of said, do you think we should call each other and say hello? And I'm like, oh, do you think? He goes, like a phone date or something. I went, oh yeah, if you want to. So, we rang, and he's like, we start talking. It was so weird because I hadn't heard his voice in over 26 years, and it was like, just trying to connect the... And we talked till 6 a.m.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, you had 20 odd years to catch up on.
Yeah, it was actually really beautiful. So, and then I think a couple of weeks later was my birthday, and he pikes up a week before and says, oh, I'm coming over for your birthday. And I'm like, what? I said, no, you don't have to do that, But he didn't have a passport or anything like that. So, but he got it, and he booked a flight the day before my birthday, and he jumped on a plane. I remember he messaged me as the plane was taking off, saying, well, I'm taking off now, and I'll see you soon when I land into your life. I went to the Gold Coast airport to pick him up, and I'm so nervous that I couldn't wait inside the terminal. I actually had to stand outside, and it was August, so it was cool for Gold Coast, not for here. And I rang one of my girlfriends saying, oh my gosh, I can't do this, what happens if it's been 26 years? And she goes, just breathe, you're going to be fine. Yeah, he kind of walked out, and I was outside, and I saw him, and it was just, I don't know, I think the doors just opened, and I just glided in. I don't even think we said hello. I think we just kissed, to be honest.
Oh.
It was so because I was like, oh my God, there he is. And it was boom. The next day was my birthday. We were staying in Surfers, and, we went and had breakfast, walks down the beach, and did all that stuff. And then we got back to the hotel, and he's like, I bought you something. And I'm like, what do you mean you bought me something? And he goes, for your birthday. And I said, but you're my present, you came all that way, you didn't have to get me anything. And then he handed me a box with that ring in it. And I was like, oh my God. And he said, it's real. And I said, I know. I said, you haven't seen me for 26 years, and you jumped on the plane with that ring. And he said to me, I told you I was coming for you, taiaha and all. I loved you then, and I love you still, and I can't believe I've got this second chance with you. And that was it. He had me. I was done. I was like, yeah, I'm done. That's it. Let's go.
I feel like this. I'm getting emotional. This is something you watch on a movie.
I know, right? We went on that journey. My thing was, I'm not going to have a long distance relationship with someone in New Zealand. I don't have any plans to leave the Gold Coast. And even though my children were older, his son was young, and didn't expect him to move, uplift his life and come over. But I thought, well, let's just see what happens.
It sounds like a bit of a rom-com, hey? But like in any good love story, they still had obstacles to overcome to get their happy ending. Or happy beginning, really. Sharon had family, a career, and a busy life on the Gold Coast, whilst Caleb had his own family obligations, as well as his pest control business, Wharepapa Road, working in the remote East Cape bush. So relocating to Australia for home wasn't really an option, but together they made it work, until it was decision time.
We did long distance for a couple of years. I was flight attendant with Qantas, Brisbane based, loved my job, obviously have my 4 babies. when I moved back, I didn't want to give up my job. I really loved it, and I hadn't done it for long. So I commuted. But living somewhere like Te Whānau Apanui, it's a mission just to get here. So to be able to travel back to Brisbane and Gold Coast to do my job, it was a whole day of travel, either driving 2 flights, 6-hour drive, so on and so on. And then I'd get back there and have 20 to 30 flights in a week or so, and then a whole day to travel home. So I was constantly travelling and then coming home and not actually being able to, rest and enjoy and be here. So after doing that for a few months, it wasn't viable anymore. So I made the heartbreaking decision to resign. But my husband was dragging me up the bush anyway. So when I was here, I would just follow him like a lovesick puppy around the hills. And first time he took me in, it just blew me away. I couldn't believe, oh my gosh, you actually do this for mahi. And we went up to one of the huts, and we were there for the night, and we had the fire going. And the kōrero that he had with me that night really settled me. He talked about his tipuna. He said, everywhere I step, every place I go, my tipuna have been before me, whether it's my awa, maunga, in the moana, they've been there before me and they've led the way, and they always look after me, and they will always look after you. So I never felt scared, I never felt alone. So eventually, because I was going in there all the time anyway, they gave me a job, and 6 years I walked those hills with my husband. It was crazy, and 45 minutes up the awa on a quad bike, that was our commute to mahi, rain, hail, shine, climbing for hours just to get to do our first traps or get to the huts, and walking around, sometimes 14 kilometres a day. And we would go in together and then separate. So pretty much we're on the hill all day by ourselves. And then we would come back together, either back at the awa, at the quad bike, or up in the forestry at the work vehicle, or back at the hut. So you just kind of get used to that lifestyle. So we were kind of in the bush for like a week, and then we'd come out on the weekends. Hard yakka.
Sharon and Caleb both now work for Raukūmara Paimounga Restoration Project. Caleb is a deer and goat aerial culler, and Sharon is an operations supervisor.
We work in the Raukūmara Ranges. So Raukūmara Ranges is the ngahere, and we actually say it's maunga to moana, between Te Whānau Apanui and Ngāti Porou. And within that ngahere, there's around about 80,000 hectares of PCL, public conservation land, which we say is stolen land. But what happened was that the two iwi came together and established the Raukūmara Paimounga Restoration kaupapa. Two iwi working together, and in partnership with the Papa Atawhai, Department of Conservation. Caleb and I were invited to kōrero around that space and go to wānanga about it, and we absolutely love the kaupapa, and we're like, yeah, we want to be a part of any conservation efforts to help restore the Raukūmara ngahere, and whatever we can do to tautoko that. Yep, my husband's been in pest control for 20 years or so he's done everything to do with pest control, and if he can teach a girl from the Gold Coast how to work in the bush, then anyone can do it. But so I went for a role as the operations supervisor for operations and monitoring, and I was successful. The goal for our kaupapa was to enable whānau to work their own whenua, so those that whakapapa to the Raukūmara Ranges, and we've been very successful at doing that, and training and giving the opportunities for whānau to do that mahi. Currently we're the biggest Indigenous conservation kaupapa in the country, and we're just little. and we're still new. We're still building, we're still establishing, but what's important to us too is our iwi to iwi connections. So being able to support other iwi and other kaupapa that are doing the same incredible amount of mahi as we are. Growing up, my twin sister and I were 2 years old when we went to our grandparents, and we didn't see our mother a lot, maybe once or twice a year if we were lucky, and our father would come visit us once a week on a Sunday when he could. So, we didn't have our parents, and I kind of grew up with a narrative that my mother didn't want, to be there or be our mum, because I was a little girl that needed a mum. I needed a mama, and so I had a lot of resentment towards where were you? I needed you, and I blamed her for that. But coming home, I realised that because I thought I never understood why you went there. I never understood you. But my journey coming home and connecting with my whānau, her siblings, my cousins that knew my mum, and hearing their beautiful stories about my mother and how much she loved us and how much she wanted us. I didn't know that. So that's been very healing for me, to know that actually mum did, but dad got custody. We were with our grandparents. It wasn't because she didn't want to be there. She did. It just
didn't play out like that.
It didn't play out like that. And I really wish I could tell her now that I understand. I understand the trauma that she went through as a child into her 2 marriages and then having 9 children, but actually not being able to have them. Because she was, the one thing about my mother was she was so loving. She was a party girl and she was the life of the party, but she didn't have a mean inch in her or anything. She was very loving. Everybody loved her. She grew up as Missy girl. That was her name, her real name, Rangitaiki. I knew her as Rose. I was 15 years old and saw my birth certificate and there's this Rangitaiki name, and I'm like, who's that? And she's like, that's me. I went, what do you mean that's you? She goes, that's my name. What do you mean that's your name? Your name's Rose. No, it's not. My name's Rangitaiki. What? I'm 15. I didn't even know my mother's real name. And I said, well, where did Rose come from? She goes, some Scottish boyfriend back in the day, and I just kept it. But see, that's what they did. And so coming home, understanding our history, Aotearoa's history, colonialism, what happened to my mother, what happened to her parents, the reo beaten out of them, all of that, and not imparting it to their children or being able to raise us in te ao Māori or our culture. I understand now. I understand that she wanted to, but so healing. So, I miss her and I wish I could tell her now that I understand. So I want to be able to learn so I can pass on to my mokos and my babies, because one day I hope that they will want to know too. Yeah, I just wanted them to be able to understand too and share. This is why Mum came home. So I had to.
like listening to you talk, it's really making me think about the kupu ako, because it means to learn and to teach. And I think it's really beautiful that, you know, even though you're a grandmother, young grandmother, but you know, you're at that point in life, you've got this real zest for learning and equally teaching what you've accumulated through that learning process to impart on other people, which is, I mean, it's probably one of my favourite kupu in Te Ao Māori, because it's I think often in the world there's so many teachers but not enough learners.
Yeah.
And in Te Ao Māori everything is about that duality of exchange, where you're able to learn and teach.
Well, that's it. I'm totally on a learning journey here. Absolutely. I did my level 1 and 2 te reo class, which was the first one here in Te Kaha. And what was cool about our class was it was a lot of actually us older ones, you know. Like I just turned 52 the other day, and it was kind of our generation and even older than that just didn't get an opportunity to learn, you know, te reo. And I really wanted to growing up, but I wasn't allowed to. So now in my 50s, I'm trying to learn my own language, and it's real challenging to get over the obstacles of I'm not allowed to, but actually I can now. And so what comes with that for me is whenever I have to stand up in kōrero Māori, I'm so nervous. I literally shake on the inside, and it's exciting. And I actually finished the course and graduated, and it was funny because we only a few months ago we had our graduation, and I had to go to town for mahi anyway, so I thought, well, I'll just pop in and grab my certificate and then take off. But when I got there, it was huge. There were hundreds of people, and everyone got gowned up, and I was really blown away. I had tears running down my face because I thought, you know, I never thought that I'd be here. You know, throughout my life, I'm actually, this may be just level 1 or 2, but it's actually a big achievement for me. Yeah. But you know, when we go to marae, and we're always at the marae, we always have pohiri for this or a wānanga for that, I want to be able to sit there and really understand the kōrero, really, really understand and be confident enough to stand up and introduce myself. And which actually the first time I ever did that in public was the Mauri stone blessing we had around in Ruatoria, a place called Mangarau Kōkiri. We had the conservation minister there, we had all of that, like all the big wigs of Department of Conservation, had the iwi, and I'm sitting there and I've got my phone in front of me, and one of the fires there said, "Are you okay?" I said, "Oh, I'm a little bit nervous, I haven't done this before." And she looked down at my phone, and there was a photo of my moko. And she was only 2 years old then, and she said, "It's okay, your moko's going to get you through it, your mokopuna, she's right there with you." And I was like, okay. So when it came to me, I just stood up and I just went like this. Probably got it all wrong and pronounced things terribly, but when I finished, I just went, "Oh my God, I haven't done that before." And everyone cracked up laughing and clapped, and the support I got afterwards, heaps came up to me and said, "Just keep going, you'll get this," you know. And I think before, even as I tried to kōrero Māori in the past, I got a lot of, that's not how you say it, or, and it really, like, so I just wouldn't. But to have tautoko and awhi from others to say, you'll get there, you'll do it, just keep going. And if you don't know who you are or where you come from, and I never knew where I came from. I didn't know much about my whānau, but now I do. So yeah, that it helps me understand me a lot more.
I really got a sense talking to Sharon that her heart was in two places. As she shared her life's journey with me, living on the Gold Coast felt like this whole other world, and she reminisced about it with such fondness, and of course her children are still there, so it makes sense that her heart is still there too. But as time has moved on, and over the years that her and Caleb have built this beautiful, busy, devoted life to whenua, to Māoritanga, to whānau, I got the sense that she had fallen in love with this place and really made it truly her home.
It's so busy around here at Christmas time because everyone comes home, and it's just bustling with whānau and heaps of cool stuff. And when the kids come back, we just put up all the glamping tents and the caravan pumping, and it's just easy. We can have our whānau come and stay and cruise down to the river for baths and stuff like that, because we're not on town water or anything, we're on tank water, and just those kind of things that you have to get used to. When I first came back, Caleb came in after a week, so going, kind of can't do the washing every day because now the water tank's empty. I'm like, oh really? Because I don't know that kind of stuff. Yeah, he really had to teach me the basics. So yeah, that was funny. Well, our whare is definitely our sanctuary. It's peaceful. We always love coming home, and we travel a lot for our mahi, and often are away nearly every week, or in the ngahere. So we definitely are. My husband's a homebody. He loves being home, and he's outside working all the time. Him and his dad are always working on the farm. So, it's just one of those things that definitely I like the quiet now. And before it was always, what are we doing? Where are we going? And it's busy. But yeah, no, I definitely appreciate the beautiful, place we live now. Yeah. I've been home on the Gold Coast. We went over and celebrated my 50th birthday there a couple of years ago. I remember we were staying right in the middle of Surfers Paradise, had a big apartment for all the kids and the mokos, and we'd go out, Caleb and I, because of the time difference, we were up 4 or 5 every morning, and have a coffee. And the sun's rising there, so we'd watch the sunrise over the ocean and surfers. And I remember one morning my husband saying to me, I know it's got all the bells and whistles here. I know you spent over 20 years here. Because he feels it when we're over there, to me, that's my other home as well. And I'm so grateful for what Australia did for me, but also for my children. I was able to raise 4 incredibly amazing human beings, and Australia's looked after them. And, I'm grateful for that. But, he said to me, I know it's got all the bells and whistles and everything, but, there's no wairua here, and we're not connected to the whenua here. And I know what he means. And I said, yeah, I totally understand. I think the last time I just came back, I truly was like, yeah, this is my home now. This actually is my home. Wow. And he said, at last. At last.
Thanks for listening to Far From Town, a podcast series from the team at RNZ and Shepherdess. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you're following the series in your favourite podcast app to hear more stories of women living at the end of windy gravel roads and up remote valleys across Aotearoa. A heartfelt thank you to Sharon Wharepapa and her whānau, who welcomed us in, shared so openly, and gave so generously of their time. It was a privilege to sit at your table and hear your story. I'm your host, Āpage Tarato Rangikura, he uri no Ngāti Raukawa, Ngaitirangi, Ngāpuhi me Ngāti Rārua, presenter, writer and producer for the series. Francine Board captured photos and video along the way. You can see these on the webpage for this series. Felicity Connell is our researcher and production assistant, and Christy McGregor is the series producer. The series was engineered by the RNZ operations team. Justin Gregory is the executive producer for the series, and Brianna Uritich-Gregg is the production coordinator. Thanks to Janina Schwanica for all the great advice and guidance on the series. Tim Watkin is the executive editor, audio. You can find more of RNZ's great podcasts on the RNZ website, rnz.co.nz/podcast. Have a listen.